Part 2, Veterinary Physiology. Explain the negative and positive feedback mechanisms through this figure.
Control of the reproductive system. The reproductive or estrous cycle in animals traditionally has been divided into 4 stages called proestrus, estrus, diestrus, and anestrus. The cycle also may be divided into a follicular phase and a luteal phase. In the follicular phase, the cycle is under the influence of estrogen produced by developing follicle, and in the luteal phase, it is under the influence of progesterone made by the corpus luteum. This figure shows the control of the reproductive system is achieved through feedback mechanisms responding to increase or decrease levels of estradiol and progesterone in the bloodstream, and increasing or decreasing daylight. The hormones that are included in this process are the GnRH, or the gonadotropin releasing hormone, the FSH, or the follicle stimulating hormone, and the LH, or the luteinizing hormone. The FSH, or the follicle stimulating hormone, causes the growth and maturation of a follicle, which begins to produce increasing amounts of estrogen as it matures. Estrogen causes the changes that occur in proestrus and estrus, including the behavioral characteristics associated with estrus. For example, tending to be mounted. The follicle also produces inhibin, which, along with estrogen, serves as negative feedback to the hypothalamus to inhibit the release of GnRH, or gonadotropin releasing hormone. The release of the LH, or luteinizing hormone, causes ovulation of the mature follicle and the formation of a corpus luteum in its place. This event signals the beginning of diestrus and the beginning of the luteal phase of the cycle. The corpus luteum produces progesterone, which prepares the uterus for pregnancy. Once pregnancy occurs, the corpus luteum maintains a uterine environment conducive to normal progression of the pregnancy. Progesterone levels in the blood serve as negative feedback to prevent the release of GnRH, or gonadotropin releasing hormone, and the development of the new follicle during pregnancy.
And additional information will be given by our friends from MedVet site.
Gonadal activity in the cow is controlled by the hypothalamus and the adenohypophysis. The hypothalamus, located at the base of the brain, secretes GnRH, or gonadotropin releasing hormone, which stimulates the production and release of FSH and LH by adenohypophysis. These hormones act on the ovary as follows. The FSH, or follicle stimulating hormone, stimulates the growth and maturation of follicles that are in the ovary. The LH, or luteinizing hormone, is responsible for both the last stage of maturity of the follicle that has become dominant and its ovulation. This dominant follicle prior to ovulation is responsible for almost all the secretion of estrogen in the ovary, specifically estradiol. This hormone is responsible for expressing sexual behavior in the female when acting on the central nervous system, so that the animal manifests the behaviors characteristic of being in heat or estrus, indicating that the cow is ready to conceive. In domestic animals, heat generally coincides with ovulation, since high concentrations of estradiol cause stimulation of the hypothalamus and pituitary gland, causing GnRH levels to increase. But its stimulation towards LH production is much greater, since in parallel with this, a hormone called inhibin, secreted by the granulosal cells of the growing follicle, inhibits FSH without altering LH. In this way, with the help of inhibin, the estrogens favor the peak of LH. That will cause follicular rupture and ovulation. Estrogens also act on the uterus, causing changes that favor the transport of spermatozoa. Once the ovulation was given in the area where the follicle was, capillaries were broken, causing these remains to fill with blood, forming a clot called corpus luteum hemorrhagic. By action of the hormone LH, this clot becomes a yellow body or a corpus luteum. This is responsible for the production of progesterone. This hormone has a negative feedback effect on the hypothalamus, since it suppresses the release of GnRH and therefore decreases the levels of FSH and LH, avoiding new ovulations. Progesterone also has an influence on the mucous membrane of the uterus, preparing it to receive an embryo and to maintain or nourish it during the first days of gestation. If the cow is not pregnant at 17 days after estrus, if there is no embryonic recognition, the uterus produces PGF2 alpha. This hormone produces the regression or destruction of corpus luteum, a process known as luteolysis. This causes a white body called corpus albicans, which is not functional, which decreases the levels of progesterone, which causes its negative feedback to be withdrawn, allowing the hypothalamus to begin its production of GnRH again, and therefore FSH and LH, stimulating follicular growth again, the ovulation, and a new sexual cycle begins.